of minutes past 1:30 now, so I might get started anyway. And whoever joins us, that will be great. I can see in the chat, Megan, thank you for introducing yourself. That's great. I was just mentioning to those who have just joined us that given Skilling Queenslanders for Work is such a collaborative piece of work, and the projects rely so much on community partnerships, there's a great opportunity at any of these sessions, the tender writing sessions or the introduction to Skilling Queenslanders for Work sessions, to connect with other people who are interested in this way of working. So please utilise the chat, introduce yourself, where you're from. And another thing I would really encourage you to do is to share the country that you're coming from too. So please do that in the chat if you would like to. My name is Stacey. For anyone who doesn't know me, I work in the sector capacity team here at QCOS, and for quite a few years now we have worked with the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training to provide some information sessions and tender writing sessions to assist the community-based organisations in our state to utilise Skilling Queenslanders for Work and to make the most of this great initiative that the Queensland Government has been rolling out for quite a while now. And it's really exciting to hear that this is continuing, and round one for this year is now open. And so the registrations for today showed that most of you have not applied for this funding before. So the purpose of the session today really is to provide a good overview of the different programs within this initiative and give you some information about the kinds of success stories that have come out of Skilling Queenslanders for Work previously, to give you a good idea of the kinds of things you might be able to do with this funding. Okay, so let's get into it. I've just realised, sorry, the usual slide that I have up for acknowledgement isn't there. So I'm going to just pause for a second and acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people on whose land I'm sitting on today, where I do my work. Pay my respects to their elders, past and present. And I would also like to acknowledge the Darumbal people of Central Queensland, on whose land I was born and raised, and the Yugambeh peoples in the south of Brisbane, where I raise my family now. And again, I would encourage you to acknowledge the land from where you're coming from today. Okay, so Skilling Queenslanders for Work is quite a significant investment. It's $430 million committed over 6 years so far, from until 2020, and assisting 54,500 people. As at 30th of June this year, $443 million has been committed statewide under Skilling Queenslanders for Work to assist 71,000 disadvantaged Queenslanders. And that's $402.11 million actual expenditure. So 12 funding rounds have been held for the community-based training programs. 2,113 community-driven projects worth $394.5 million to assist 68,485 disadvantaged Queenslanders. There has been $29.25 million allocated across 76 local councils and 1 statutory authority to create 2,100 additional traineeships under First Start. And an additional funding was made available from 2016 to 17 for community-based organisations under First Start, and $8.3 million was awarded to 95 not-for-profit community-based organisations under First Start to create 415 new traineeships and apprenticeships. And as at 30 June 2021, 60,178 people have been assisted, with 37,301 gaining a job as a direct result of participation in this initiative. So 6 out of 7 programs previously offered are going to continue in this financial year and beyond, with Work Start incentives being discontinued and 2 new programs being introduced, Community Foundation Skills and Skill Up. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of these programs as we get into it. So Skilling Queenslanders for Work has been revitalised to accommodate the changing labour market conditions as a result of COVID-19, and to support the Palaszczuk government's commitments under Unite and Recover Queensland's economic recovery plan to rebuild and grow the economy. The annual assistance target has increased from 10,000 to 15,000 disadvantaged Queenslanders. And in this financial year, a single competitive funding round will be held under a transparent, contestable process with the 7 community-based programs with project-based delivery models. And they are community work skills traineeships, Get Set for Work, youth skills, ready for work, community foundation skills, and Skill Up. Total funding of $70.1 million for these 7 programs, representing the total regional budget allocation. A note here that the available funding each round includes ongoing long-term contract commitments. And I'll mention a few of those in a few slides. So the budgets are notionally allocated across the region and applications scored, comparatively assessed on a regional basis. Work skills traineeships include 5 qualifications, and those qualifications are construction, conservation and land management, hospitality, retail services and business. First start for councils allocated by an annual bidding process undertaken by local government area Queensland in partnership with DESBIT, expected to occur late August and early September. And first start for community is by direct application to DESBIT and assessed on published criteria, applications accepted from 1st of July. Priority is given to areas of identified high need for job seeker groups. So in this budget, we have a permanent annual $80 million budget. That constitutes of $78.5 million in grants and $1.5 million in operational costs. The annual assistance target has increased from 10,000 to 15,000. And if we break down that $78.5 million, there's $70.1 million in the 7 community-based training programs and $8.4 million in the First Start program. $70.1 million of the budget is not available for new projects, and $71.1 million also needs to cover carryover commitments, so the second payments for 2020 to 21 projects and long-term contracts. I'm just pausing just to check the chat to make sure we haven't got any questions yet. Great, just some great introductions in there. I do recommend jumping in there and seeing who else we've got on the line and who you might like to make some connections with if you haven't already. Okay, so what's changed in this year's budget? For anyone who is familiar with previous budgets for Skilling Queensland's work, here are some of the things that have been tweaked. So there's one funding round only for projects in the 2021-22 budget. The next funding round is scheduled for February next year, and it's for projects funded from 22 to 23 in the 22-23 budget. So the funding round will be open in this financial year, but that financial reconciliation won't be happening until the next financial year. So something for you to keep in mind. Ready for work has been expanded, so the age restriction has been removed, 15 years and over with no upper age limit. The work start incentives discontinued, so eligible employers can receive back to work payments for recruiting and retaining job seekers, including former Skilling Queenslanders for work participants. There is also a range of wage subsidies and incentives offered by the Australian government for employing trainees and apprentices. This decision frees up funding to provide assistance to more people across the state. And this is important because Skilling Queenslanders for Work is aiming to assist 15,000 people in this budget this year, an increase of 5,000 places on previous years with the same $80 million budget. Payments will continue to be paid under work start incentives to any eligible employers for trainees or apprentices who are employed with them by the 30th of June 2021. And they're registered with the program and have qualifying periods after 30 June 2021. For youth skills, eligibility is now broader, and young people at risk of offending and known by Queensland Police can be recruited onto projects. Something that's been retained, the Community Work Skills Program, Work Skills Traineeships, Get Set for Work, Youth Skills, Ready for Work and First Start. Skilling Queenslanders for Work is supported by a statewide regional network and working closely and forming partnerships with community-based organisations and local employers to determine local skills, entry-level industry and labour needs. Skilling Queenslanders for Work has a critical role in increasing workforce participation by improving work opportunities for vulnerable job seekers. It continues to develop holistic projects that include a range of support measures to address barriers to participation and work. Skilling Queenslanders for Work is providing opportunities for economic growth across Queensland that is grounded in principles of social inclusion, employment opportunities that meet the aspirations of individuals and their communities, and increasing the accessibility of the labour market for all Queenslanders. Skilling Queenslanders for Work promotes a range of social benefits for individual participants through increased workforce participation, and that includes improved health and wellbeing, confidence and social inclusion. Skilling Queenslanders for Work generates connections between participants, employers and community groups. And since 2015, $115 million has been invested under Skilling Queenslanders for Work in community-based organisations operating social enterprises as employment and skills generators, resulting in the creation of over 8,300 jobs. So I'm going to go over the new programs now. So the first one is Community Foundation Skills. Community Foundation Skills, or SFS, is a new program under the revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work. It includes up to $5 million this financial year to prepare 1,400 disadvantaged Queenslanders with the new foundation skills, knowledge and confidence to participate successfully in modern knowledge economy. So foundation skills are fundamental skills that support participation in the workplace, the community, and adult education and training. Individuals who have very low foundation skills are more likely to experience multiple and complex disadvantages, requiring greater support to develop high-level foundation skills. So providing access to affordable foundation skills training is really critical to breaking cycles of poverty, joblessness, and intergenerational disadvantage. Community foundation skills will offer a broad set of enabling skills and a continuum from basic to highly proficient that include language, literacy, numeracy and digital, also known as LL&D, and employability skills to develop career aspirations and build links with community and employers. This program will support people with low-level foundation skills seeking to upskill, return to study or enter the workforce. Around 70% of Australians not in the labour force and 60% in the lowest income decile have inadequate literacy and numeracy skills. Training will be tailored to the individual foundation skills development needs of the learner. They can be enrolled in full foundation skills qualification or units of competency or non-accredited foundation skills training. Stakeholder participants will ensure stakeholder partnerships, I should say, will ensure that the foundation skills training is contextualised to the employment and community participation needs of the local area. The implementation of foundation skills program supports a proposed national foundation skills strategy to be implemented in 2022. This standalone foundation skills program under Skilling Queenslanders for Work will be a significant acknowledgement from the Palaszczuk government that Queensland is investing in community-based foundation skills training to support learners to build these essential skills. Success in this program will be measured by pre and post foundation skills training capability for participants benchmarked against Australian Core Skills Framework, or the ACSF, and the Core Skills for Work, CSFW, developmental framework. The ACSF provides consistent national approach to evaluating and building the 5 core skills of learning, reading, writing, oral communication and numeracy. Employment and further training outcomes will also form part of the standard key performance indicators for the community foundation skills, consistent with the current monthly reporting by providers across all Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. Okay, I'm pausing for a second because we've got a question. Sure, Belinda, thanks for your question. Belinda's asking, can I please have a question? Would non-residents and people seeking asylum be eligible for Community Foundation Skills Program? Thank you. Now, that information is in these slides, and off the top of my head, I'm believing you. Okay, I'm going to leave it for Michelle, just in case I say the wrong thing. Michelle, would you be able to clarify this one? I think it does come up in one of the slides, just from memory, but can you clarify?
It's always an interesting one. I mean, we look at a pathway to permanency, but I think I'll sit back, if you don't mind, and see when that slide comes up.
Yeah,
it's an area I've had very little to do with. So, and we normally if we get a question, we go back to central office to clarify it. But yeah, but that's yeah, I'm not 100%, so I wouldn't like to say, but we'll see what the slide.
But Belinda, I do think that might come up in a couple of slides. So let's just sit on that one for a second. If it doesn't, and we don't clarify during this session, we'll take that question and get back to you. Okay, so my last point about this new program is that there is an expectation that providers will design services to provide a continuum of support to participants across all learning and work pathways, so they achieve their learning goals and transition to work or further education. Now, the next new program in this round is the Skill Up program. So Skill Up is a new program under the revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work again. It's up to $4 million in this financial year to assist 1,200 adults, 25 years and older, specifically mature age, which is considered 45 years and over, and recently retrenched or displaced workers. Skill Up provides tailored assistance and industry-focused training up to Certificate 3 level to adult job seekers to help them get started on a new career path. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. The program will have an integrated service delivery model delivered in a community-based setting, like the existing Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. Not-for-profit organisations, including peak industry bodies that can demonstrate strong links with or representation from government, industry and community sectors will be eligible to apply for this funding. Delivery will be industry-focused training aimed to address critical labour and skill shortages and will equip disadvantaged individuals with the skills required in a changing labour market. A training and support plan to be developed for each participant and, where appropriate, individually tailored for the acquisition of foundation skills embedded in the learning support. So the program will target high priority industries with entry-level skills shortages. Lack of skills are a significant barrier to employment, and people who are marginalised from learning are unlikely to engage in training on their own. So Skill Up and will target job seekers who benefit from an informal and supportive learning environment that is often best offered by community-based organisations. Now, community work skills. This will provide $10 million in this financial year to provide supported training to 3,300 disadvantaged Queenslanders. It's a program-based delivery model. There's tailored support, including a mix of career advice, job preparation skills, nationally recognised training up to a Certificate 3, foundation skills and individual case management. Training and assessment services are funded under Certificate 3 guarantee. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. Lower level qualifications and foundation skills recognised as an appropriate pathway. Standalone foundation skills projects can be delivered with a pathway to vocational skills articulated. As of 30 June 2021, 64.6% of exited community work skills participants statewide have gained a positive outcome. So that's in either a positive outcome is considered to be either in either employment, they've gone into further training, or a combination of both of those things. External survey results indicated 70% of community work skills participants with a positive outcome 12 months after exiting. So we see that this has been a really effective program in supporting people in that pathway, not only for gaining a qualification or learning of some kind, but some longevity in their employment outcomes. The delivery of foundation skills is strongly supported by DEDS, but either standalone or integrated into the vocational qualification. If integrated, foundation skills should only be delivered to participants that have been individually assessed as requiring that support. If standalone, the pathway to a vocational qualification should be articulated with the inclusion of relevant elective units of competency. Okay, so there's a few of these throughout the session, and these are really helpful for getting a good idea of the kinds of projects that work and get off the ground and are supported by DEDS, and have fantastic outcomes for participants. So good news stories are developed from the monthly reports and photos of projects that are submitted by Skilling Queenslanders for work providers, so organisations that have received this funding previously. A Multilink was awarded $114,200 to assist 36 disadvantaged job seekers in Woodridge and Helensvale. The project was delivered from August 2019 to October 2020. Individual support included access to English classes, specialist services referrals, employability skills, communication skills, job preparation, interview support, and ongoing post-participation support. And wraparound support included first aid training, if required, blue and yellow cards, uniforms, student IDs, transport assistance, and learner driver assistance. And upon project completion, 37 were assisted, 35 completed, 30 or 81% gained ongoing employment after exiting the program. 27 of these participants came from a culturally and linguistically diverse background, and 22 of them were women. So great outcomes for that one. Moving on to the Work Skills Traineeships program. This includes $37.35 million in this financial year to provide 1,860 traineeships or jobs. So unique entry-level traineeships combining elements of government-funded work projects with the benefits of a traineeship model. Traineeships are one of 5 qualification streams, which we have mentioned previously, and they are business, construction, conservation and land management, retail services, and hospitality. So traineeships employed full-time. Approval needs to be obtained for part-time work. So just make a note of that if you're interested in this program. Trainees are employed on public works, community, social enterprises, or environmental projects that are of benefit to the broader community. The trainees undertake Certificate 1 qualification that integrates vocational skills with on-the-job accredited training. Work skills trainees are fully exempt from student contribution fees. Certificate 1 in workplace skills replaces the Certificate 1 in business qualification. So the Certificate 1 in workplace skills is still part of the business services training package. However, units of competency are not transferable between Cert 1 in business and Cert 1 in workplace skills. Business trainees will need to be enrolled in the Cert 1 in workplace skills. Organisations will need to ensure partnering RTOs have this in their scope of delivery. Work skills traineeship projects should be delivered on a full-time basis. So participants working 5 days a week. A DESBET approval needs to be obtained for part-time traineeships. And these are generally, just to give you an idea, part-time traineeships are considered for people with disability or women returning to the workplace. Funding under work skills traineeships is primarily for participants or trainees for their wages, which should generally make up 70% of the total cost of project. In-kind support or complementary funding from other sources generally is required for a project to be undertaken or to deliver a more cost-effective project. And where works are to be undertaken on council-owned land, there is an expectation that council will contribute materials, equipment or labour to demonstrate support for the project. So again, these programs are really most successful when there's quite a bit of collaboration amongst community-based organisations and businesses, employers and others within the community. It does really rely quite heavily on fostering robust partnerships that will be able to support these participants in a really holistic manner, right from through their learning pathway into employment. Okay, so kinds of projects. To give you some ideas, these are the kinds of things that have been undertaken as projects previously. So the term of the traineeship will be dependent on the length of the project. So nominal duration for a traineeship is 6 months, and at the time an individual takes to achieve competency. The length of a project must be between 18 and 26 weeks, with length determined by the work activities to be undertaken and alignment to the training plan. So you need to think about what would be sufficient time to complete the proposed works in the community, public works or environmental project, and also the competencies of the Certificate 1 qualification. Projects proposed for delivery of less than 18 weeks will not be supported. So the underlying objective under the work skills traineeships is not only to leave a visible and long-term impact on the physical community infrastructure, but these opportunities are going to those within the community who need it most. So the work skills trainees need to be getting into the pattern of going to work each day. So as we go along, you see these programs are really cleverly designed, and the intention is not just that we're getting people a qualification and not just that we're getting them a job, but we are encouraging longevity of that employment and real engagement in the workforce by providing the kind of support and learning that really leads to those foundation skills that we have mentioned. So that pattern of going to work, those interpersonal skills required to get along with colleagues, all of those kinds of things that lead to a successful engagement in the workforce. So the priority for this program is long-term unemployed job seekers. Youth participation rate for work skills traineeships is considered too high currently. It currently sits at 62.1%. And this is not an exclusively youth program. So under the former Skilling Queenslanders for Work, youth participation under work skills traineeships was around 36%, and we've seen that jump up to over 60%. So mature age participation rate in this program is considered pretty low. It's 8.6% at the moment. Previously, we've seen it sitting around 49%. Prime working age, 25 to 44, participation rate for work skills traineeships is steady, which is it's currently at 26.6%, but DESBIT is really looking to increase that. High numbers of long-term unemployed job seekers are in this age group, and so we're really looking for projects that are going to be targeting this 25 to 44 years old cohort. Employment-based models, so the training is conducted on the job 5 days a week, and DESBIT is paying the wages of trainees through Skilling Queenslanders for Work funding, as this result needs to impose additional requirements and expectations to ensure that the government outcomes are achieved. For example, job seeker gets paid work opportunity and adapts to the rhythms of full-time work, gains confidence by working, gains skills from the job and sometimes off the job training, is exposed to employers in the community and transitions to mainstream work. Previous experience highlights that jobs secured by participants and trainees are often not in the field of study, but relate to the overall experience of the project. So that's something to keep in mind. It really is that continual engagement with the extended community, not just in that training room, that leads to the outcomes. The requirement on the RTO, or the Registered Training Organisation, to deliver large amounts of training in a classroom and off the job will be minimal, and in many cases will be limited to the assessment of the competencies that the participants have acquired on the job. So DESBIT is funding full-time wages to support on projects on community benefit, and DESBIT is funding the wages of supervisors to work with participants on a full-time basis with a focus on the skills and confidence being developed on the job. So work skills traineeships also reflect one of the range of training strategies already available under user choice, which is the employment-based delivery mode, and provides directions to SRTOs seeking to provide services to a SKU project. The intent is not for Skilling Queenslanders for Work to fund the wages of full-time students, as full-time learning options are already available under the Certificate 3 guarantee in these qualifications. So as defined in AVITNIS 30, employment-based delivery mode includes training activity conducted in the workplace, whether it's conducted by the training organisation or the employer. For example, industrial or work experience, field placement, or fully on-the-job training. So there's some exciting opportunities there as far as community projects go. And we'll have a look at a few examples soon, some more examples. As far as the work conditions go, so the funded Skilling Queenslanders for Work organisation is the employer, and you as the employer receive the funding primarily to meet the trainee wage costs. Any unspent or unexpended trainee wages are returned to the department at the end of the project. Participants sign a training contract with their employer, the community-based organisation receiving the funding, and are registered as trainees. Trainees cannot be put in dangerous work environments or situations. For example, trainees should not be undertaking work of any kind without adequate supervision. They shouldn't be undertaking works that may be hazardous to their health or that of the community, such as removal of asbestos from old buildings. As at 30 June 2021, 65% of exited work skills trainees statewide have gained ongoing employment. All right, here's one of the examples I've mentioned. So Community Enterprises Queensland was awarded $107,200 to employ 4 Indigenous job seekers as work skill trainees on Thursday Island. The project delivered from September 2019 to March 2020. And wraparound support included LLN, so language literacy numeracy, culturally appropriate support plans, work health and safety induction. In addition, trainees gained knowledge and skills reading labels, healthier options, food presentation, and general compliance. 5 Indigenous trainees were employed, 100% of them completed, 100% gained ongoing employment. So fantastic outcomes for that program. Here's another one. Mackay District Agricultural, Pastoral and Industrial Association was awarded $566,500 to employ 24 disadvantaged job seekers in the Mackay region. The project delivered from May 2020 to May 2021. Wraparound support included that LLN assistance again, social and emotional, life skills, so developing self-esteem and motivation, team building, goal setting and addressing substance abuse, specialist service referrals, employability skills, work experience, networking and job searching skills. 24 were employed, with 22 completing and 67% of them, so that's 16 of them, gaining ongoing employment. In the post-participation phase, a mentoring program was delivered with assistance from the Rotary Club. So really good examples there of extending on the program and utilising other community-based organisations to provide that really holistic wraparound support. This is a great one, this house project. So the Youth Development Foundation Limited was awarded $429,600 to employ 20 trainees. The project commenced in April 2021 and will be complete in April next year. So this one is an ongoing one. Additional training was offered in first aid, forklift licence, construction white card, working at heights, confined space training, and certificate 2 in skills for work and vocational pathways. Wraparound support included LLN support, guest speakers, multimedia presentations, cultural awareness, career planning, job searching, life and employability skills, transport assistance, provision of safe work clothing, and assistance with obtaining driver's licenses. So ongoing post-participation support is also offered to these participants. Now, I like this next example because I can really attest to how wonderful Hope Street Cafe is. Mica Projects was awarded $231,000 to employ 8 disadvantaged job seekers. This project delivered from August 2019 to August 2020. 8 trainees were employed, 7 completed, 5 gained ongoing employment. The project continues to operate under a long-term contract arrangement. So right at the beginning, I mentioned that in the budget is included carryover, so long-term contracts, and this is an example of a long-term contract receiving some of those funds. So wraparound support at Hope Street Cafe includes life skills, building self-esteem, childcare, addressing health issues and substance abuse, transport assistance, emergency accommodation, resume development, job searching, identifying career paths, and ongoing post-participation support. If you're in Brisbane, get down to Hope Street Cafe and see what they're like. They're great. They provide catering as well. Just a little plug for that social enterprise. Okay. Back to business. So Access Community Services Limited was awarded $400,000 to employ 20 disadvantaged job seekers in the Townsville region. The project delivered from February 2020 and it will be going until February 2021. Although that's this year. Finished it in 2021. I've got my years mixed up. It's all going too fast. 20 trainees were employed, 18 completed, and 15 or 75% secured ongoing employment. Wraparound support included LLN assistance, job search, life skills, foundation skills, mentoring, cross-cultural awareness, family support to transition into work, transport assistance, learner driver assistance, clothing, and specialist service referrals. The Storm King Dam project. So in this one, the Southern Downs Industry Education Association was awarded $581,700 to employ 30 disadvantaged job seekers to gain paid employment as work skills trainees in the Stanthorpe area. The project was delivered from September 2019 to July 2020. 32 trainees were employed, 27 or 84% completed, and 24 or 75% gained ongoing employment. To enhance trainee skills and future prospects, 3 units of competency were delivered in control weeds, prepare and apply chemicals, and transport, handle and store chemicals. Wraparound support included job preparation, transport assistance, mentoring, employability skills, life skills, LLN assessment and assistance, referrals to community services, subsidised meals, driver licence assistance, and post-participation support. Provided skills for employment in nurseries, horticulture, local council and national parks, bush regeneration and weed control. So that's the last of the examples for this particular program. And I know that sometimes when the scope is quite wide, it can sometimes be hard to think of ideas that will fit within the wide scope. And so hopefully those examples of successful projects have given you a good, really generating some ideas for yourself in your own organisation about what the kinds of things are that you might be able to do with this funding. The examples are varied. There really is few limits on what you can do. There's lots of different things that you might be able to pursue with this funding. And at this point, I would really encourage you, if you have a project idea and you would like to speak to someone about it and whether or not they think it really fits with the priorities and the scope of this funding, to call your regional office, your regional DESBT office, and have a chat to them about your project idea.
And Stacey, can I just jump in?
Absolutely, please.
Also remember to jump on DESBT website and you can click on and have a look at examples Queensland wide. So that's another good way to access what's actually currently being delivered.
Yeah, excellent. Really good idea. I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but sometimes I find, like I just said, when the scope is really wide, it can kind of be hard to rein in your ideas and figure out where you can go with it. So having some examples is just a great way to get some conversations started in your own organisation about the kinds of things you might be able to do. Okay, so the program Get Set for Work. This one provides $8.75 million this financial year to assist 2,350 disengaged youth, 15 to 19 years. Funds are locally based community organisations to deliver intensive training assistance over 12 months in a project-based delivery model. It aims to create a transition pathway by finding them a job, continuing with education or training, or to return to school. Employment outcomes are considered the primary objective for this one. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. Training, delivery and assessment services are funded under Cert 3 guarantee. Integrated learner support is funded under the program. Practical learning activities include adventure-based learning, which sounds very exciting, I have to say, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits and motivational speakers, or learner driver training. So lots of things are able to be provided for youth under this program. As at 30 June 2021, 67.9% of the exited participants have gained a positive outcome. So again, a positive outcome is considered to be either employment, further training, or they've returned to school for this program. Primary focus is on early school leavers who are no longer enrolled in school, and young people who are at risk of disengaging from school can participate, but other learning options and school-based pathways should be explored prior to their participation in Get Set for Work. So I really want to reiterate here that the Queensland Government's preference always is that children or youth remain in school. So we're not pulling kids out of school to participate in this program. The priority is always that they remain engaged in school, but this is for youth who have already disengaged from their schooling at the moment. And a positive outcome after they're exiting this program may be that they decide to return to school. So for some youth, this program might be the mechanism through which they re-engage in their learning. The program is not to be used by schools as a punitive action or as a behaviour management strategy. Another really important point to make. The KPI for this program is that 55% of the participants have a positive outcome. And again, that is either a combination of employment, further education, or returning to school. Here's a great example, Get Set for Work in Far North Queensland. So Vocational Partnerships Group was awarded $223,000 to employ 63 disadvantaged job seekers aged 15 to 19 in the Cairns region. The project delivered from January 2020 to December 2020. Participants undertook training to become work ready and to meet emerging skills challenges across healthcare, retail, IT and administration. Social wellbeing and vocational barriers faced by young people was also addressed. So 63 participated in this program, 100% completed, and 100% of them completed one of the qualifications that was offered, and 45 of them, or 71%, gained a positive outcome, being a combination of employment, entering further education or training, or returning to school. Wraparound support included employability skills, career counselling, industry networking, work experience, resume development, job interview skills, job searching, and post-placement support. Here's another great example. Downs Industry School Co-op was awarded $267,200 to assist 70 young people aged 15 to 19 years. And this project was designed to give participants confidence, motivation and skills to transition into work or further education. For some of them, support was required to gain first aid or construction white card, and that was provided. The project delivered from January 2020 to December 2020. 71 participated, 100% completed, and 63% gained a positive outcome. So either employment, which was 36 of them, entering further education, 7 of them, or 2 of them returned to school. Individual support included language literacy numeracy assistance, life skills, employability skills, personal development, industry visits, work experience, adventure-based learning, and if required, ongoing support for as long as required. Life skills included personal hygiene, healthy lifestyle, so diet and exercise, mental and sexual health, self-defense, budgeting, personal development in painting, gardening, landscaping, tie-dyeing, and furniture restoration. So this program, Ready for Work, expanded up to $4 million this financial year to get 5,000 people ready for work. Due to COVID, restriction of 15 to 24 years has been changed to 15 years and above with no upper age limit. The program has been expanded to also specifically target recently retrenched and displaced workers as a result of COVID, and older job seekers and skilled migrants who may benefit less from accredited training and more from specific skills or employment activities. This funds community-based organisations and schools like P&Cs and PNFs to deliver basic job preparation and employability skills courses over 6 to 8 weeks in evenings or on weekends to those employed 15 years and above to get them ready for work. So this includes job search, support or activities only. In this program, nationally recognised training is not available or funded. So if you're looking to deliver vocational training, qualification of some sort, you need to investigate the other programs. This one will not be for you. Referrals to other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs are permitted based on individual specific needs. Participants from other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs cannot be referred to Ready for Work. Job search assistance has already been funded and provided through those programs. Now, school students may participate in Ready for Work only where it can be demonstrated that the student meets all of the following requirements. So they're at risk of disengaging from school. They have minimal barriers to achieving employment, so they only require minimal assistance to successfully transition to work. If they're needing more than that, it's ideal really for them to be in a different program to this. This is only providing, I guess, what would be described as a light touch. They don't have access to other forms of job search assistance. So have a think about whether or not the participant really is right for this program. As of 30 June 2021, 55% of participants statewide have gained a positive outcome. So that's employment, further training, or a combination of both. Okay, so youth skills. Up to 1 million this year to assist 200 young people aged 15 to 24 years who are engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police with nationally recognised training and supported into employment. So if you're working with this cohort already, this is a really ideal program for your community-based organisation to investigate, because you will be ideal for knowing what kind of wraparound support these young people might require and what really works. It funds locally based community-based organisations with relevant capacity and experience to work with these young people. It encourages a creative and dynamic approach to intervention. Barriers are identified and they're provided with a supported pathway. All participants must be enrolled in training, which is funded under Certificate 3 Guarantee. Integrated learner support is funded under this program. Practical learning activities include adventure-based learning, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits, motivational speakers, and learner driver training. And outcomes will vary according to individual learning pathways and goals. Participants must be engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police. They must be aged 15 to 24 years and no longer at school. They can be at risk of offending. The age range has been expanded up to 24 years to allow a stronger focus on the Queensland Corrective Services youth cohort, which includes young offenders aged 18 to 24 years. DESBT consults with Youth Justice and Queensland Corrective Services during the assessment processes for their comments and advice on relevant local information regarding applicant organisations, so their past experience with the client base and performance outcomes, and the proposed training and delivery strategies. Okay, the next program we'll look at is First Start. This is a wage subsidy program for local councils, which offers $15,000 for local councils, and there's $20,000 available for community-based organisations. So funding under First Start for councils is via a bidding process, which is managed by the Local Government Association of Queensland. The bidding process involves councils requesting the number of traineeship positions required for the following financial year. Bids are assessed by LGAQ and endorsed by DESBT. For the community-based organisations, the requests are via application forms to an email address, which I don't think it's on the screen, but we might pop in the chat. It's sqw@desbit.qld.gov.au, and submit an application form directly to DESBT. So applications for community-based organisations to receive this funding are based on a few criteria, and they are experience managing government funding, ability to employ training supervised trainees, ability to retain post-traineeship, location suitability, and experience with disadvantaged job seekers. Do you need that email, Maria? Have you got it? Great. Maria's popping that in the chat now if you're requiring that email address. Okay, so overall, 60,178 people have been recruited across all the programs, and that's as of 30 June 2021. Overall, we've assisted, includes 2,374 trainees recruited and enrolled as trainees or apprentices under First Start. That's for councils and community-based organisations. As at 30 June 2021, 37,301 people have gained employment as a direct result of Skilling Queenslanders for Work. Job count is based on people exited into employment from community work skills, Get Set for Work, Ready for Work and Youth Skills Plus people employed as trainees on work skills traineeship projects and under First Start. So people are in a job from day one in these direct job creation programs. Data is not mutually exclusive and is accumulated over time. 70% of participants experience a positive outcome. And again, for Skilling Queenslanders for Work, what we consider to be a positive outcome is either employment, training, further training, or a combination of those. And for the youth, return to school. And 70% of participants are experiencing a positive outcome 12 months after exiting a program. And that's been discovered through external survey results. So our top 6 industries that we're engaging with through this initiative. Since 2015, the top 6 Skilling Queenslanders for Work investment areas based on qualifications delivered and the cost of the project are construction, agriculture, business, general education and foundation skills, tourism, travel and hospitality, and community services. Work skills traineeships projects account for the high percentage of overall budget. And they include construction, CALM and business traineeships. Construction, plumbing and services was 25.1%. Agriculture, horticulture and conservation land management was 18.1%. Business services made up 15.5%. General education and foundation skills was 11.3%. Tourism, travel and hospitality, 10.3%. Community services was 9.6%. And that data has been updated as of 30 June 2021. So who can apply? Skills Assure suppliers, or SASs, are registered training organisations pre-approved by DESBT to deliver training and assessment services. Previously, you may have known Skills Assure suppliers as pre-qualified suppliers, so they used to be called PQSs. Now it's SASs. School parents and citizens and parents and friends associations are eligible to apply for funding under Ready for Work program. Job active providers are eligible to apply for funding if they are a not-for-profit organisation. However, they must address the duplication issue on their application and demonstrate what recruitment strategies will be used to ensure they're meeting their Skilling Queenslanders for Work eligibility criteria and actively recruiting people who are ineligible for job active services. Eligible not-for-profit community-based organisations can apply for First Start. So your role and expectations as a community-based organisation. You're responsible for designing and leading the project, providing ongoing engagement with participants and working in partnership with an RTO who delivers the training. The wraparound support is tailored assistance based on identifying needs. It may include assistance with living skills, counselling and confidence building, job preparation skills, work experience, foundational skills, digital literacy and career pathway decisions. Referral to external specialist support agencies may also be applicable. So again, all of these programs really rely heavily on the partnerships you've created within your community with other community-based organisations and other services that are available. So thinking about the core work that you do, the work that you do well, the cohorts you know well, and really leveraging off that knowledge and the partnerships that you have already established within the community. The community-based organisations are responsible for designing and leading the project and providing ongoing engagement with participants and working in partnership with the RTO who delivers the training. So the program really relies on the RTO will have expertise around delivering qualifications, but the community-based organisation really holds the expertise and experience about what works for wraparound support for those participants. So delivering learning is one thing, and training and attaining a qualification is one thing, but there's all those other things that lead to positive outcomes that we're looking for from community-based organisations. Community-based organisations support that wraparound support separately to the training support. So a learning plan may be provided by the RTO, making allowances for particular learning needs for participants, but that is different to the wraparound support that you will be providing those participants. Community-based organisations are expected to provide tailored individual assistance, including personal support that addresses work-related and non-work-related issues. Community-based organisations are assisted to assist the RTO with the development of the individual training and support plans. And finally, the community-based organisation is responsible for the recruitment of participants. So thinking really carefully about who you will be able to attract to this program and how many you will be able to attract, and being quite realistic about those numbers. So the types of assistance that can be provided. The assistance may include the above detailed broad components. The assistance should be individualised and based on identified and emerging needs. This does not preclude group and team building activities. However, projects that use a broad brush, so everyone must do the same approach, have the potential to disengage participants and jeopardise positive outcomes and the project KPIs. So we're keeping in mind here why these participants aren't currently in the workforce or have disengaged from learning environments previously, and ensuring that we don't just replicate the disadvantages or barriers that they have already experienced. Assistance may include some of these components again, and just reiterating, that's not a broad brushstroke across your cohort. It really is about providing individualised assistance. Life skills, counselling services, even things like that driver licence assistance can really make a difference for someone as far as how they participate in the workforce and being able to get around, really. Particularly, we look at regional and remote locations where public transport isn't something that's available. You may even need to be looking at things like personal grooming, what they would even wear to an interview, programs that include meals. Very hard to learn if you're hungry. So just thinking about all of those kinds of things. Childcare. Is it going to be really difficult for them to engage in learning because they've got young children and they have no family support? Things like that. So the RTO roles and expectations, these are the kinds of things that you'll need to be on the same page with your RTO when you're first establishing the partnership that you'll be relying on to deliver these programs. So you'll be working in partnership with them to develop individual training and support plans for participants. The RTO is responsible for the delivery of the training and assessment services funded under Cert 3 Guarantee or User Choice. There to customise training to suit individual participant needs, including strategies to assist any literacy or numeracy challenges. So the Australian Qualifications Framework, or AQF, is the national policy for qualifications in the Australian education and training system. And the AQF provides a guide to the volume of learning, and it describes how a learner who does not hold any of the competencies identified in the relevant units of competency or modules would take to develop all the required skills and knowledge. So this is the kind of thing that you're relying on the RTO to know. So what kind of volume of learning will be required for these qualifications? What kind of allowances might we need to make for different learners at different levels? How much time are we going to be spending in a classroom or absorbing learning in that particular training manner? Or how much of it's going to be on the job, and really getting a clear picture about what kind of program could be delivered given all of those expectations. Now, application, if you are moving forward with applications, they are capped at 10 per organisation per funding round. So just have a think about that if you are looking at submitting multiple applications for this funding. Capping applications is a direct strategy to ensure new or smaller or niche organisations continue to be considered for funding. So qualifications should be subsidised qualifications on the priority skills list. We're not really looking at parts of the workforce that are already thriving and don't have any kind of trouble acquiring workforce. We're looking at priority skills list. The selected RTOs must be skills assure suppliers with DESBIT. RTOs must have the selected qualifications in their scope of registration And training must be linked to local employer opportunities. And this needs to be evidenced by current employer letters of support. If you register for the portal through which you need to submit any applications for the different programs available, you will see that there are particular pieces of evidence that are required to submit your application. And one of those pieces of evidence is letters of support. And letters of support come from employer or potential employers and other organisations within your local community that support your project idea. And it's really important to clarify at this point that those letters of support are not supporting your organisation, they're supporting your project idea. So having a letter that's there from XYZ business down the road saying that your organisation is great and does fantastic work is all well and good, but it does not meet those requirements. What you need is current letters, so within the last 6 months, letters that support the idea that you're putting forward to be funded. Choose a SAS or that registered training organisation with flexible and blended delivery models and assessment methods, extended periods for learning, and they're not restricted by minimum class size. So that's something that some organisations tripped up on previously, is engaging with an RTO that has a minimum class size or has really stringent ways of delivering their training. Again, we're thinking about the barriers to learning and working that people in these programs have already experienced, and we're not wanting to go down that path again with them. So we're wanting to build really strong partnerships with RTOs who understand that and have it in their scope of work to be providing really flexible models. Department monitoring organisations delivering multiple projects or with dual role of CBO and RTO. The Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees are able to consider full fee for service funding or qualification or skill sets that fall outside of the priority skills list if you can provide evidence of a strong industry or employer support. So yeah, if you're thinking outside of the box, that's fine, but the onus will be on the applicant to provide evidence for that need. Organisations need to nominate which RTO they're going to use to deliver the training and assessment services in their application or funding. So there is a bit of groundwork to be done before you're submitting an application for these programs, because you must already know who you're going to be working with and be on the same page. Nationally recognised training is just one component or aspect of Skilling Queenslanders for Work projects. So keep that in mind when you're doing your project planning and really unpacking your project idea. Obviously, your relationship with the RTO and the actual delivery of a qualification or the skills is really important. But the other KPI for these programs is positive outcomes. So just delivering the qualificational skill is just one part of it. So don't spend all of your project planning, energy, resources on that one aspect of the program, because a positive outcome for the program is considered to be not only the acquiring of that qualification, but employment outcomes or other positive outcomes for the participant. So ensuring that you're having a look at all of the support that you're going to be providing to these participants. Department monitoring organisations are awarded multiple projects. So this includes monitoring community-based organisations delivering their own projects and providing support and delivering training, but also nominated as the RTO on other projects. Any questions about that? I'm going to jump into good practice principles if we've got no questions. It looks like hopefully you're the quiet just means that you're taking lots of information in. Please pipe up if you have a question. Oops, I've skipped. Okay, so good practice principles. Good practice principles for disadvantaged learners. Supported learner pathways for transitions built into the learning experiences. Strong partnerships exist to support learners' needs and their successful transitions to further learning and or work. A good practice principle is that training has been integrated with work experience and aligned to area of labour market demand to support sustainable employment outcomes. Embedded support for foundational skills within vocational training. And the voice of the learner, knowing the learner, their community and their culture is really important. So how do we maximise completions? Individual training and support plans are mandatory. These are bits of the evidence that you'll need to have on hand to submit an application. So you'll need to do all of this thinking before you even apply for the funding. So identifying any support directly or through a third party individual learners need to prior to their enrolment or commencement of training. So there might need to be some groundwork done with participants before you even get onto that learning part of the program. Provide access to support through the training. So language, literacy, numeracy support, assistive technology, additional tutorials, and other mechanisms such as assistance in using technology for online delivery components and that kind of thing. Keep in mind COVID and your flexibility as far as any restrictions go, that kind of thing. And of course, adjustments in the assessment process is really important too, and your ITO should know how to do that well. Often disadvantaged cohorts lack the confidence and skills to get into formal training. The Australian Skills Quality Authority, or ASQA, is the national regulator of vocational education and training. And you should maximise the chance of disadvantaged learners successfully completing training through standards for RTOs. So access to support through training, which is individualised and targeted, is really preferred, as reflected in your training and support plans, which you will have on hand. Adjustments to support to accommodate emerging and changing needs, and adjustments in the assessment process to accommodate the learner, such as, for example, oral rather than written assessment. So top tips for applications. The project budget is embedded in the web-based application. It previously was a separate Excel spreadsheet, but it's now embedded into the portal. Supporting notes in the budget must show a breakdown of all the costs and expenses. You need to justify what the government is, what they are funding, and that includes your in-kind contributions. So things that you won't require funding for because you are providing a training room, or you are using your organisational minibus to pick up participants and transport them to and from training. So having a think about all the things that you and your partners in the program will be providing in kind. A number of applicant organisations are still forgetting to include the student contribution fees, which are mandatory for all work programs except for work skill traineeships, which are exempt, and Ready for Work, which is a nationally recognised training not funded. The price per participant for the student contribution fee should match the price that is published on the SAS website for the Certificate 3 guarantee or user choice. If the RTO is charging additional support costs, then these costs need to be included in other costs with supporting notes. Okay, so again, please check to see if your registered training organisation requires minimum class numbers. There have been instances where the RTO has withdrawn from a project because the community-based organisation wasn't able to attract the minimum class numbers that they required to go ahead. Shop around for an RTO or SAS that best suits your needs, and build a strong relationship with them. You will only really gain those positive outcomes that you and Desbert are seeking if you're really on the same page with your partners in the program. Work out your in-kind costs again and provide written confirmation on official letterhead of what your organisation or others are providing in the program. You will need 2 years of audited income and expenditure statements, and that's a mandatory requirement. You also need, again, mandatory requirement, your training and support plan. You need employer letters of support, and they must be current and be, again, project specific. So those letters of support are on letterhead. They've been written within the last 6 months, and they support your project idea, not just your organisation. And read the application guide available on the web. There's quite a few different resources available on the Desbert website and Skilling Queenslanders for Work website. Program guidelines, including expected KPIs or expected outcomes for each program, lots of information available. And again, your regional office would love to speak to you about your idea. So let's have a little chat now about the key target groups, because these are the cohorts that we're really thinking about targeting, and you as community-based organisations, I'm sure, are already quite familiar with some of these cohorts. They would be some of the people that you work with regularly, and you will be really well placed to meet their needs and provide that wraparound support. Participants do not have to necessarily belong to one of the key target groups as long as they meet the specific program eligibility criteria. So we're looking at recently released prisoners, young people aged 15 to 24 years, including those in and transition from out-of-home care, mature age job seekers, which are considered age 45 and over, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, people with disability, migrants and refugees from culturally diverse backgrounds, women re-entering the workforce, veterans, ex-Australian Defence Force members and their families, underutilised workers, including underemployed and those marginally attached to the labour force, retrenched and displaced workers as a result of COVID-19, and that is a new cohort for this time around. You can recruit outside of these target groups again if there are barriers to training and employment, but just keeping in mind your program and who you're targeting a group outside of this priority list of cohorts may not be funded. So really, these are our priority as far as learner groups go. For eligibility, the Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs will primarily target job seekers who are ineligible for Australian Government Employment Services and Assistance or require complementary services because they have significant barriers to learning and employment, or have access to Australian Government Employment Services for more than 6 months and remain unemployed. Participants must be 15 years of age and above and no longer enrolled in school. Existing or prior qualifications do not matter, as Skilling Queenslanders for Work provides a second chance to retrain and gain new qualifications. The selection of participants for enrolment is at the discretion of the funded provider, subject to eligibility criteria and in consultation with DESBIT. Individual programs are subject to some variation in eligibility criteria. And again, this is why it's so important to pick up the phone and have a chat to your local office about your idea. DESBIT will monitor the number of Australian Government clients participating in Skilling Queenslanders for Work. Future funding for an organisation may be impacted if a high percentage of job active clients are recruited onto projects. So just keep an eye on that. And again, there's no upper age limit for eligibility. Okay, here's the information we're looking for, Belinda. I think it was Belinda, wasn't it? Residency status. So Australian citizens or permanent residents, New Zealand citizens permanently residing in Queensland, humanitarian entrants living in Queensland, temporary residents living in Queensland with the necessary visa and work permits on the pathway to permanent residency. For individuals on a bridging visa A, B, C or E, a business case seeking approval of participation must be submitted to the department via the email address, which is squ@desbit.qld.gov.au, and that was provided earlier in the chat. Hopefully that does answer your question, but please email if you're seeking any further clarification. I knew it was in there somewhere. I knew it was coming. Okay, so again, reiterating that school students are not eligible to participate in Skilling Queenslanders for Work, and organisations of schools are not to be encouraging school students to disengage with school so that they can participate in Skilling Queenslanders for Work. School students looking for a traineeship should explore school-based apprenticeships or traineeships. School students are able to participate in Ready for Work projects in accordance with the program eligibility criteria. Nationally recognised training is not delivered as a program, as program offers basic job preparation services and assistance only for that one. So expected outcomes, we've mentioned this a few times during the webinar. The expected employment outcomes varies between the programs. And again, if you look at the guidelines for each of the separate programs on the Skilling Queenslanders for Work website, you'll find PDFs for each program. and they all detail what the expected outcomes or what a positive outcome looks like for that program. So if you're wanting an idea of what success would look like for your project, jump on there and have a look at those guidelines. Employment can be full-time, considered more than 25 hours per week, or part-time, less than 25 hours per week, in a permanent, temporary or casual or self-employed capacity. Community work skills, traineeships, ready for work and skill up have a KPI of 55% employment outcomes. Get Set for Work has a KPI of 55% positive outcomes, which is a combined outcome of employment, further training or returning to school. Youth Skills does not stipulate a percentage employment outcome. Outcomes for community foundation skills are identified by applicant organisations. Success will also be measured by pre and post foundation skills assessment for participants benchmarked against the ACSF and the CSFW. We spoke about those earlier. Participant outcomes are recorded to the organisation as they exit the project, and participant reports are submitted monthly to DESBT throughout the life of the project. Organisations submit their final report 90 days after a project completes, and all outcomes, completion of a qualification, employment, retained employment or increased hours to existing workers, further training, return to school, not in the labour force, unemployed, all those statuses are reported and will need to be recorded on the departmental database as final outcomes. Another expected outcome is a completed qualification. Enrolment in further education and training to be complete up to a Certificate 3. Employment outcomes can be full-time or part-time, permanent, temporary, casual or self-employed. All participants externally surveyed by the Queensland Government's Stat Office 12 months after exiting a program. So that's how we do that follow-up work to see how participants are going after they've exited the program. So as you can see, when you're thinking about your project idea, success and what your evaluation will look like is a really important component. Not just for satisfaction in your own organisation to know what the outcome was of all your hard work, but it's also about building a good set of data for next time. So any ongoing funding opportunities are really well supported by good evaluation. Now, a little bit about the SKU advisory committees. So these committees review, prioritise and recommend applications for funding under the 7 community-based training programs. So how it works, if you haven't gone through this process before, is that you will submit a funding application, and DESBT will first of all assess you against the criteria of capacity to manage. If your application gets through that tier of the assessment process and you are found to be having capacity to manage the program that you're putting forward, it will then go to these locally based Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees. And they do a comparative assessment of all the eligible applications undertaken against all the published criteria in the program funding guidelines. They consider things like the regional unemployment rate, the need to focus on eligible identified disadvantaged groups, government and locally based priorities, the geographical spread of the proposed project in the area, the qualifications to be delivered, the potential for sustainable job outcomes, local industry and occupational profiles, identified local entry-level and labour needs, previous performance and budget availability. They have no involvement in the funding process for this First Start program. That program is centrally managed. These advisory committees were formerly known as regional priority job committees. So if you've heard that term before, it is the same group, they've just had a name change. And they were established to ensure independent and regional coordination for Skilling Queenslanders for Work. And the membership of these committees is comprised of representatives from nominated by community, employer bodies, employee bodies, government and regional stakeholders. And their role really is to review, prioritise and recommend applications for funding using their local lens of knowing what's going to work in their community and what's needed in the community. Okay, so for 2021 to 2022 regional priorities, they're determined by each DESBT region. Again, another great reason to jump on the phone and have a chat to your local DESBT office. Based on the results of previous funding rounds and any emerging trends, regions may target a particular cohort or equity group, or a specific location in the region, or a specific industry. So there's not a standard answer across the board for Queensland for this one. It really is about looking at local need. So the online application process is, as I have mentioned previously, via a portal. So you'll need to jump on the website and register an account to be able to submit an application. Online application allows applicant organisations to attach supporting documentation, for example, those financial statements and your letters of support, your individual support plans for participants, and the portal will not allow you to submit an application unless those mandatory pieces of evidence are attached. An error message will appear if a mandatory field is missing. After submission, a confirmation email will be sent to your organisation via the email that you have submitted in your contact details. Now, there is frequently asked questions that are published on the Skilling Queenslanders for Work webpage, so you can have a look at that. And if you don't find the answer, definitely contact your local office for more information. It's a fairly user-friendly online application process on a secure cloud-based environment. The information can be securely accessed at any time from any device with internet access. Organisations must register online to create an account, and your application can be worked on over time in more than one sitting. So just save it and come back to it later. An important thing to note, once it's submitted, it is submitted. You can't edit the application once you have pressed that submit button. So the assessment process, as I've said, there's a single funding round for this year. And from 22 to 23, DESBT will return to the 2 funding rounds each year, which we have previously seen. The first funding round for a financial year generally expends 70% of the budget and the remaining 30% is usually committed to the smaller second funding round. It's a transparent, contestable application process. Applications are assessed against published program assessment criteria, so there's no mystery around how these applications are assessed. Those assessment criteria are available via the website. Applications are assessed on a regional basis. The department knowledge and experience they have, that's what they draw on for deciding which projects will be funded. Current and past program performance will be taken into account. And again, that's why your evaluation data is so critical. Stage 1, again, is capacity to manage. If you're assessed as successful in that tier, you'll move on to stage 2, which is assessment of all eligible applications against the assessment criteria by DESBT and through the locally based Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees. So let's talk about timelines. Funding is open for this round. It opened in the end of June and it closes on Thursday, the 19th of August at 5 p.m. So really needing to do the groundwork right now for getting that application in. Organisations are encouraged to submit prior to the closing date. I do not recommend jumping on at 4:30 on the 19th of August to submit your application. So please give yourself plenty of time. Again, maximum of 10 applications allowed per organisation. No late applications are accepted. Online access will shut down after 5 p.m. September to November this year will be that assessment and approval process time. And in late November, the Minister will be announcing results. From January 2022, that's go time. So if you're successful in receiving funding, that's when your projects will begin to commence. Projects must start in the financial year funded. Okay, so intakes can roll into the next financial year, but your project must start in this financial year. Michelle, did you want to say something? I just saw you turn on your video, which makes me think you're ready to say something.
Sorry, one. I just wanted to also note that applications on a regional basis. So if you've got officers crossing over different regions, then you have to put in separate applications. So for instance, I'm North Coast region, I'm in Bundaberg, so I've got a CBO that has projects in Bundaberg, but also Gladstone. So they've put in Central Queensland and Wide Bay. So just that was just something little.
Yeah, really, really important to note. And the other thing to note, I think, about that regional model is that if your organisation is sitting outside of the region in which you would like to be delivering a program, you need to be making a really good case as to how you're doing that from outside of the region. So if you're not in the community in which you're wanting to roll out a program, you need to put some thought into how you make a case for that.
Yep. Can I just say a couple other things? And I'm in the letters of support from industry, also look at if they're incorporating industry visits. They might sit on a panel and help with interviewing, whatever. They might come in and do talks, etc. If they can put that in the letter of support, in particular if they're open to interviewing potential employees after the program, that's a big tick with us.
Yeah.
So that's great. And the last thing was recycle participants. So obviously in the application you incorporate your recruitment strategies and your screening processes, but sometimes you just may not be sure. Now we don't support recycle participants in our programs, but you can actually forward a business case to get approval for that, where we're not going to sit and check if you're successful every one on a program, but there might be the odd one that can't remember, or you're not sure, so you do have that capacity as well.
Great, thanks, Michelle.
I'll mute now.
No, that was great. Some great tips there, good things to keep in mind. And as I said, most people who registered for this session have not submitted SKU applications before, so I imagine all of these little bits of information are really, really helpful. So thanks, Michelle, for that input. Okay, if you do want more information, there are a few ways to get that. So obviously there's the Desert website, where there's lots of fact sheets, guides, information about the programs available. You can email that email address that's on the screen now at Desert, or it was also in the chat, or you can give them a call. Again, the Desert team really recommend you giving your local office a call to have a chat about your idea. They really would like to talk to organisations before they get too far down that planning pipeline. Have a chat to them about whether or not they think that idea would work, if it meets the priorities for the region. They might have some suggestions of other things to consider. So give them a call, please. Now, if you are wanting some more information about how to write your tender application, if you haven't done many and you're wanting some tips, if you have done lots but you're just looking to put your best one forward, please come along to our tender writing workshop. It's different to this workshop. It's not just information about Skilling Queensland's work, it's actually about writing your tender application. We do have one last one online on the 3rd of August, and registrations are open on the QCOS website. We also have a 1-hour webinar of tips and tricks for submitting a funding application, and that's on the 2nd of August. So both of that, so that's Monday and Tuesday next week, those 2 webinars are, and they will be our final offerings as far as funding application support goes for this round. We'll be back again next year with some more workshops, but if you would like to brush up on those tender writing skills, please jump on the website and register for those workshops, because they will give you some more information about how to really write to the assessment criteria that's been released for Skilling Queenslanders for work. Are there any final comments or questions before we end the session? We would love to hear how you found the session, so please let us know. Any feedback we will be incorporating into further iterations of the information session.